Biology 111, Chapter 7, Cellular Respiration. This is slide number 1. Slide number 2, basically, the purpose of slide number 2 is to define what cellular respiration is. The word respiration, many of us associate that word with the word breathing. And basically that's somewhat is what a cell does. Of course, a cell doesn't have lungs, but it has the ability to absorb gases such as oxygen, and oxygen is a critical element or critical component of the process that we call cellular respiration. And what is the task of cellular respiration? Cellular respiration has the task to produce ATP, which is the molecule of energy of a cell. The cell uses this type of molecule, or uses this molecule every time it has to perform or execute a biological process that requires energy. Most of the ATP that is produced inside the cell and eukaryotic cells is mostly produced in an organelle, already discussed in a previous chapter. The organelle that has the nickname the powerhouse of the cell, and this organelle is called the mitochondria. The mitochondria is present in both plant cells and animal cells, eukaryotic cells in general. The overall equation I'm going to show you in a few minutes. Certainly recommend that you guys have a printout of this slide because it's a little bit foggy, this video, in terms of the picture image. But anyway, cellular respiration, what we call exactly aerobic cellular respiration, consumes oxygen and in order to produce energy in the form of ATP. During this process, carbon dioxide is released. The overall equation of cellular respiration is here in the bottom. Is basically a molecule of glucose, which is 6,6H12O6, plus 6 molecules of oxygen. Eventually, they come together through many steps of this process to produce 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water, and between 36 and 38 ATPs. Another type of cellular respiration occurs when oxygen is not present. It's a most inefficient, I'm not most inefficient, I apologize. It's an inefficient way of producing ATP. However, there are organisms that when they are in a condition, or their cells in a condition when oxygen is absent, they still can perform production of ATP from glucose. This process is also known as fermentation. So basically, fermentation can occur in 2 different ways, depending upon what kind of cells we're talking about. In animal cells, in many bacteria, in the absence of oxygen, 1 molecule of glucose, you can see here, eventually is converted into a product that we call lactic acid or lactate, and only produces 2 ATP. So it's a very inefficient way of producing ATP. In other type of cells, such as plant cells and yeast cells, 1 molecule of glucose in the absence of oxygen would turn into alcohol. It would produce carbon dioxide, and it would produce only 2 molecules of ATP. Later, I'll show you the commercial application that these 2 processes have in the industry of food and also in the industry of brewing. Again, this process is also known, anaerobic cellular respiration is also known as fermentation. So this is slide number 3. Okay, let's move to slide number 4. In slide number 4, basically, I'm trying to summarize in a very, very simplified way a flow map of the aerobic cellular respiration, and within this flow map, incorporate what anaerobic cellular respiration looks like. So glucose basically is the primary reagent or the primary reactant in this series of biochemical pathways. Glucose goes through several chemical reactions in a series. Many intermediates are produced, and at the end of that process, 2 molecules of pyruvate or pyruvic acid are produced. During that process, a net gain of 2 molecules of ATP is produced, and also 3 molecules of what we call NADH are also produced. When oxygen is present, the 2-pyruvate will take a pathway, which is actually which occurs inside the mitochondria, and there are 2 major metabolic pathways in which basically pyruvate take 2 major metabolic pathways in the presence of oxygen. Pyruvate enters one metabolic pathway, which we will discuss in more detail later, called the Krebs cycle. And then some coenzymes such as NADH and FADH2 are produced during the Krebs cycle. Also 2 molecules of ATP are produced there. Then eventually the coenzymes will move into another biochemical pathway that is based on a transport of electrons, still in the mitochondria, in the presence of oxygen. And during those 2 metabolic pathways, a total of 34 more ATPs are produced. And this pathway is called aerobic respiration because oxygen must be present for this to occur. Pyruvate, however, in the absence of oxygen, will take a different pathway that we call fermentation. And as I previously mentioned or discussed, fermentation will actually, in plant cells, will turn into alcohol, carbon dioxide, and produce only basically no ATP. The 2 ATPs are produced in fermentation come from the previous step, which is the conversion of glucose into pyruvate. In animal cells and bacterial cells, the fermentation process is based in producing lactate or lactic acid. Okay, I'm going to pause in this at this point, and I will continue with another video explaining the remaining slides of this presentation. Thank you.